The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
The BVU Beavercast is proudly supported by alum and two-time All-American Monty Mers and High Country Search. Elevate your search at highcountrysearch.com.
Welcome to the Lodge. It's time to settle in for the Buena Vista Wrestling Beavercast. Join host Jason Bryant and head wrestling coach Jeff Breese as we talk all things BV wrestling. Now, on to the show.
Pulling triple duty here on the Matt Talk Podcast Network is on location at Augsburg College for the Auggie-Adidas Open. This is the BVU Beavercast, in case you're wondering. Jason Bryant here next to the other JB, Jeff Breese, Coach Breese. We're in Minnesota and there's snow on the ground.
Oh, you know, it's late November. We're lucky there hasn't been snow on the ground for like 3 weeks, so I'll take it. It didn't snow in Storm Lake before we left, and it'll probably be nice when we get back. So I'll take it. It's late November, and I haven't really seen that much snow yet.
Was in the hospitality room earlier, and some of the Augsburg baseball players came in and started singing, "It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas." I was like, dude, it's Minnesota. That's called Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's usually called Halloween, honestly, I think. But
trust me, I know.
Oh, I forgot about the whole singlet, snow, that whole incident.
Not cool last year. That was rough. So as we're midway through the tournament, and this is an opportunity to get some on-location discussion right now. As we record this, it's approximately 10 to 3. We've been going since 9 a.m. And 6 Beavers still in it, and in different format of this tournament where it's gold, silver, and bronze divisions. First thoughts about coming up to this tournament and bringing the Beavers up?
Yeah, it's a little bit closer for us than where we've gone the last couple of years. We took a trip to Northern Illinois the first year, and then last year we were up at Cobber, so still in Minnesota, but a much longer drive. Just kind of with so many freshmen, this was a better fit for us to come and have a designated freshman division and see more D3 teams opposed to up at Cobber where there's a lot of D2s. Still a freshman division, but a lot of D2s, a lot of D1s, so a little better for us to see some D3s. And then obviously there's a couple pretty darn good teams here too that our guys in the gold division get a chance to wrestle against. So
a little different running into a redshirting freshman from the University of Minnesota than one from, say, Minnesota State or Central. Well, there's no redshirts in Division III, but Division II redshirting freshman versus a D1 guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can tell just by looking at guys, just pure size. All right, we can be in this fight. This guy's not twice our size and has had a whole summer of college lifting under his belt. These guys are actually our size. We can go and compete if we choose to. Some guys have really done that today, and we have a couple guys that still need to make that decision for themselves.
Of course, then there's when you're running the guys from Augsburg like Lucas Jeske or Owen Webster who are hanging out here in Division III.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's part of it, man. It's if you look around in the D3 finals, there's going to be some D1 guys there. So you don't come to D3 and expect you're going to win it without probably knocking off a guy that once upon a time was a D1 guy along the way. It's just kind of the way it is. You gotta train for that level.
As we talk about this tournament, this is another one. You took some guys back to Pennsylvania. Talk a little bit about that experience, about going home. First of all, how many times did you get to coach against your dad?
Only once, and it was a win, so I'll take the W there. But only the one time across the entire day. It was in a backside match, so it wasn't a whole lot of fire and venom going on. Just quick, short win for us in the first period, and then we were back on the same side for the rest of the day after that.
How much eye contact was made during that match?
Actually, not a lot.
But there was some.
I think there was a brief glance of like, yep, this is happening. All right. And then we just got back to focusing on our kids and what we needed to do. But I think there was definitely an acknowledgement of like, oh, you're over there, and I'm okay, good. Yeah, I guess this is going to happen now.
Anybody walk up and look at you, and then look at your dad, and then look at you and be like, hey, wait a minute?
A lot of the W&J wrestlers. We actually had some fun with them because we're in working out at their facility, and I was talking about how I took our guys out to the Breese farm and toured them around and let them see some hills since, the Midwesterners don't see a lot of hills. And they're like, wait a second, how have you already been to the Breese farm? He's our coach, and we've never been there. How is that possible? the ones that didn't make the connection, we didn't bother to let them know who I was for a while. We were just like, oh, yeah, we came from Iowa and drove by the Breese farm on our way here.
They don't see a resemblance at all, because the moment I met your dad last year at D3s, I'm like, Mr. Breese.
I think there were some officials. I mean, obviously I was back home. A lot of them knew me anyway, but they may have mentioned that I may be my father's son a couple of times during the day.
What about the opportunity to see some of those Division III teams, and you're taking some of your more seasoned guys out there, a little bit of a different trip than you've been used to in the 3 years here in Storm Lake, and what do you think the guys got out of it? What did you get out of it as a coach?
It was nice to just see people with different singlets. I think sometimes that really can affect how you wrestle. If you've been here for a year or two and you've taken a beating from a guy that wears red or a guy that wears orange and you've seen that singlet, it can get in your head sometimes. Not for every guy. For the best guys, they block that kind of stuff out. But some of our other guys that are still trying to develop, maybe that gets in your head a little bit. So going and seeing a singlet that you don't recognize at all is usually a good thing. Just it gives you a change of pace, and you kind of have a different level of confidence sometimes. And then it's great to see the different styles out there too. There's a lot more funk going on in PA than there is here. Not that there's none here, but there's quite a bit more as go-to defense on the East Coast. A lot of heavy hands and heavy hips here today. So it was good for our guys to see that as well. And the tournament went well. It was a good, fun bonding trip for those guys. I thought they wrestled really well and really relaxed. I mean, at one point we had six out of the 7 guys that were there with us were wrestling to place. And I think we ended up having 5 out of the 7 actually on the podium, and a 6th lost to the same Division II guy twice. So that's the only thing that kept him from placing. It was his first round loss and his round to place loss. It was the same Division II guy. So overall, I thought we wrestled really good in PA and came back home and had a pretty good performance at Luther for the guys that were there. If you look at wins versus losses on the day, we were definitely on the wrong side of things, but we had a couple guys place and have some really good performances, and we don't always have that at the Luther Open either. So it's very nice to come home and have 5 and 6 guys placing every weekend. Now we're a long ways from where we want to be, but it's a lot better than that first year when I was like, can we please just have a guy that gets take home a T-shirt once this year, please? That'd be great. So it's a lot nicer to have some guys bringing home some hardware every week.
Yeah, these tournaments in college, you don't get participation medals like my second place at the Bethel Open out of 2 guys. I took home a silver medal, but that wasn't really what I wanted to bring home. Now here at Augsburg, the unique format, whereas you're kind of behind the 8 ball in some cases. Like if you have a bad first round match, you're wrestling for 9th. Things we don't hear much in wrestling.
Yeah, what's unique about this though is really it gets the concept that we're here all trying to get matches. I mean, yeah, we want to win a tournament, we want to get wins, but we're trying to get matches. So instead of dragging it out and having a 10-round backside, if you lose your first round, you're essentially in the consolation bracket with the other guys that lost in the first round in a 16-man bracket. And then every round that you advance, your day of work gets easier. If you make it to the semis, you're guaranteed to wrestle for 3rd. If you only make it to the quarters, you drop down and wrestle in a mini bracket. And if you win your first round mini bracket match, then you wrestle for 5th. It cuts down on those long days of wrestling 10 matches to come back to take 3rd. When honestly 3rd doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot other than you probably got better that day, but 3rd at a tournament in November, really, no one's going to care or remember. It's just about building some confidence and getting matches. So I actually really like the format. Instead of putting guys through the meat grinder, you get everybody 3 or 4 matches and, move on.
For a second, I thought the Luther assistant, Billy Hubner, was wearing blue jeans, but no, they're just really faded dress pants. But as we move on, and we're a couple weeks into the season now, how do you feel your freshmen are really responding? The guys that you really hadn't had a chance to see a whole lot prior to getting in the room, and you've had some wrestle-offs, you had the inter squad, you had a tournament here and there, but how do you think they're performing up to your expectations or what you thought you were going to get out of them?
I think you're always surprised. It doesn't matter what you think you're going to get, you're always surprised. There's going to be some guys that overperform, and there's going to be some guys that underperform and don't make the adjustment the way that you thought they would. I would say as a whole, we have a lot to evaluate with our freshmen. Our compete level's got to be a lot higher, and once that happens, the ability's there, but the compete level's not there right now for some of those guys. The guys that have found the compete level are placing at almost everything, just out of sheer heart and fight, more than being so technically sound that they have it all figured out yet. They're out hustling a lot of guys, and once we get that figured out for some more guys, and once they see that, I do think we have some good ability with these freshmen. It's just, we got to get guys to make the adjustment to college, and sometimes that's tough to do. But if you see the freshman year out, your biggest jump's going to be freshman to sophomore year, and usually you've made the adjustment by then if you don't make it early on.
Now, you've got this piece of paper in your hand, and all coaches have different ways of following their athletes around this tournament. We got 5 mats out here in the main gym at Cy Melby Hall. I think I got 3 in their palatial wrestling room here, the Allen and Gloria Rice wrestling room, which is a lot of Olympians have trained in that room. And, it's always kind of, an 8-ring circus, 24, 25 in Fargo. When you're coaching guys, sometimes for the first or second time, and you and your staff have to split guys up, your philosophy on how you split them up, how you track them. I mean, sometimes is it just that notebook paper? Is there a policy system that you and Coach White have come up with?
Well, I don't know that it's that scientific. I mean, there is a piece of notebook paper, and then there's a text message with the picture of that notebook paper, so everyone has it in case the notebook paper goes and disappears somewhere. But we really try and just divvy guys up so we all can have equal mat coverage. So we're 25, 33, 41. We don't have a bunch of guys at the same weight class. And then there are certain guys that gravitate towards us, or certain guys that will gravitate towards another coach, and we try and put those guys together. But early on, we're trying to get to know as many people as we can, so we know our upperclassmen that we work the best with, and then we try and rotate through freshmen to see who we can get to know a little bit better. And the biggest thing right now at these Opens is making sure we have everyone covered. So we just assign coaches.
There's not that many places in Division III where you can go in and you can admire what the tradition and the reputation of their program is. You can that school in Waverly does that. I think we're going to not say their name anymore here on the show, but that school in Waverly. And then if you look up here on the ceiling, we've got national championship banners hanging going back from 1991 to the 2015 with Augsburg here as the host. What do you tell your kids when they come in, and do you pay attention to that at all and be like, look, this is what we're striving to be, or you just say, okay, this is just another tournament, don't worry that we're at Augsburg?
Really, don't worry that we're at Augsburg. I think they all know that this is what we're striving to be, and that once upon a time we were at this level, and that's the goal, is to get us back at a level similar to this. And obviously we haven't won 12 national titles at BV, but you get my point, that we want to be a national elite again. And so I think they all know that, and it's really more about don't look at their banners. These guys that are wrestling out here, most of them, especially in the freshman division that you're wrestling, they haven't won a banner yet either. They haven't done anything to put their name up there, just the same as you, so you go and you get after them. Now, I mean, obviously there's a lot of tradition here, and it helps to have that tradition around you, but it doesn't mean you can't go score a single leg on somebody just because they're wearing a maroon or an orange or a red or whatever it happens to be.
What have you been most pleased about in these first couple weeks of the season?
I think overall probably that we have had the results. I think last year, and maybe even a little bit my first year, we would actually compete well in situations, and we wouldn't have the results to show for it. We couldn't go back and show our fans and show our alums, look, we've got guys placing. It was a lot of, we were really close, but we don't have as much really close but right now. We have guys that are placing and have something to show for their work when they go home that day. And I think that's probably been the biggest jump and the biggest hurdle for us, is that we're consistently doing that. There's another big jump to get to where we want to be national elite. It can't be 5 or 6 guys. It's got to be 10, 12, 15 guys placing at stuff like this when we make that jump. But it's nice to see we have a little bit to hang our hat on coming home when we get on the bus every now.
As I've observed the BV wrestlers, and I've observed you and Coach White in a corner, how would you describe your coaching style? Because you're moving a little bit. Sometimes you're still. Sean's yelling things a little different. You guys are a little bit different, but a little bit the same in the corner. You ever think about how you're acting in the seats?
No, if I even tried to control it, it would be impossible. I wouldn't know. So I'm sure that I'm worth the price of admission at home duels, and Coach White probably is as well. I try not to think about it too much. I'm sure it'd be a very entertaining blooper video if somebody ever followed me around with a camera and saw me in the background of matches, but I try not to think about it too much.
As we're here mid-November going into the first real holiday part of the season that wrestlers have realized their entire lives, that crap, we can't really eat on Thanksgiving. How have you tried to approach that part of wrestling with your team? A lot of these kids are like, high school seasons don't really start until after Thanksgiving. They might be in practice at Thanksgiving. Now they're competing through Thanksgiving. They're competing through Christmas. How have you tried to bridge that gap for the new guys that are like, oh, we've got competitions like right around here? How do we do this?
Yeah, well, we try to strategically not compete the week of Thanksgiving. Typically, our BVU Open is the weekend after Thanksgiving. So that gives us a chance to compete on November 19th or roughly that weekend. And then we have the week of Thanksgiving off from competition. So that allows some guys to get home. Some guys come to my house. My wife makes a great dinner for them, and they come to my house if they're from further away. But, we try and eat Thanksgiving dinner like normal. Like normal people that are trying to be athletes, not normal people that are only plan to sit and watch football for the day. We have one good meal. We sit down, you have a plate, you have a piece of pie, and then you relax. You just try not to have the second, third, fourth, fifth plate like the average people out there that they get to enjoy that. We enjoy one good plate, take a couple days with our families and relax, and then we get back to work usually on Sunday night, and then train through the BV Open, and then all the way through the rest of the semester into finals for us.
So what is the Thanksgiving like at the Breese household? Do you pull a little more Pennsylvania flavor, or have you adopted some of the more hot dish-esque type of things that the Midwest offers?
Well, we can't go without stovetop stuffing. If there's no stovetop stuffing, there's a
cancel it. Cancel holiday.
Yeah, there'll always be apple pies. My wife makes an amazing pie, and she's got some family traditions that are family recipes. So there's usually a lot of pie. Like an unnecessary.
Geographically, where does your wife claim is home?
Dubuque, Iowa.
Okay, so you've got a little bit of both, the best of both worlds here, because I'm bringing my Southern style Thanksgiving. We're hosting this year. My wife's bringing her Northern Minnesota, so I can relate. So continue. We're talking about pies, because I might want to come to your house.
Yeah, there's usually like 5 or 6 or 7 pies. There's a couple different kinds of apple. There's a pumpkin. Every now and then a cherry just for some in-laws and that kind of thing, but there's a lot of different pie along the way, and then a varying size turkey. I didn't know they made a turkey roaster big enough for the turkey I made last year for all the guys that we had at the house, so I had to go find the biggest turkey that they had at Hy-Vee, and I was scrambling to find it, but
I'm working on that. My mom gets me unnecessary stuff because, I don't know, it's just we got a Big Easy, like one of those charbroil Big Easy roaster, cooker, smoker things that it's actually a pretty good little grill if you don't like fire. But regardless, it has a basket. I had to order a basket from Charbroil because I'm doing the turkey. We're doing a practice turkey. We're going to cook the turkey first to see if we can cook it. Then that way on Thanksgiving, we're not doing it first time. So we're doing that. And we get the egg gravy, which is something that's a Southern tradition, a little green bean casserole, which I think is everywhere, but wrestler friendly. So if you've got food that your wife has said is make it wrestler friendly, what are some things you're like, okay guys, lay off the mashed potatoes, but you can have just a taste of gravy?
Yeah, the wrestler friendly thing, I honestly we don't go real heavy on the wrestler friendly. We're like, just have one plate. We've got
How big are the plates though?
A normal size dinner plate.
What's a normal size dinner plate? Me and you have a different opinion on a normal size.
The normal size is whatever I say normal size is that day because I'm there. No, normally just have a scoop of everything, and then
How big's the scoop?
A regular spoon, like a tablespoon.
I'm not going to come to your house now.
I didn't say that's what I ate.
Your competing days are behind you.
Correct. I have a couple of days to feel good before we have a workout, so I can have a couple plates if I want to.
Amazing the type of people you run into at a wrestling tournament. Now we're with BV alum Brian Broll. Spent time wrestling in Storm Lake, a Minnesota native. You're in here, and I guess for you guys, enemy territory, but for you it's kind of home here in the Twin Cities. First of all, talk us a little bit about what you're doing up here, watching wrestling, and what you've been doing since you graduated from BV.
All right, so we actually made it up here for Thanksgiving, and my wife saw, I think, on Instagram that Auggie Open was this weekend, so we couldn't help ourselves but to come down and check it out. Since I graduated BV, I've actually been going for my PhD in computer science at Vanderbilt University in Nashville. I always like to make the joke that I'm pursuing, the music career or something when people don't know that I'm going to Vandy, but regardless. So I figured I'd come over to the Auggie Open and check it out, see some good wrestling. It's been a while. So it's always nice to just drop back in.
Yeah, so when there's usually a disconnect with either you're really into wrestling and you stay following it, or you end up coaching and you stay into it, or you get a career and wrestling kind of goes away. How much have you tried to stay in tune with the sport of wrestling and BV specifically since graduation?
So I like to try to stay in touch as much as possible. It gets tricky with the PhD workload, so that kind of takes over a lot of my life right now. But every now and then when I have time to come up for air, I like to get on the mat.
So with the PhD, so first of all, you've got the Masters from BV. Now, where does the Masters come in?
So you can actually do the Masters along with the PhD. So you can go straight from the Bachelor's program and then apply for the PhD and then get the Masters along the way. So I actually met all of the requirements for the Masters, I think, 2 years ago. So now just hopefully a year and a half left, and I should be all set.
There actually is some pretty good high school wrestling in Tennessee. There's, the only college wrestling, you got the NAI level, then you got Chattanooga down in, obviously, Chattanooga. Well, what wrestling opportunities do you get to see down there, even though it's an area that doesn't have as much as, say, here in Minnesota?
Sure. So I was able to get into the wrestling room at a private school called Father Ryan, which has a lot of momentum, anyway, in Tennessee high school wrestling circles. So that's been great, but again, it's been tricky to get in the room, especially while juggling the PhD course load.
Well, with that course load, so much of college is about being a student athlete. With your advancement into the master's and PhD program, you kind of exemplified what the degree is supposed to mean. What does a Buena Vista degree, what has it done for you, and how did it set you up for your career going, okay, I'm gonna go to school in Storm Lake, and now you're at one of the most prestigious academic institutions in the South. It happens to be a member of the SEC for those sports-minded, but, Vanderbilt's Vanderbilt. That's kind of a big deal.
So one of the things that I think helped a lot with BV was probably getting to know your professors. Not to sound kind of cliche, but I know when I was a senior, they had a new computer science professor come whose name was Nathan Backman, who just finished his PhD at Brown. So he had a lot of insight into those really top-tier PhD programs, so that helped a lot. And there were a number of other professors who helped out a bit, like Professor Bernhardt, who I don't believe is there anymore, and Professor Shepard, as well as a number of others. But I think getting that relationship with the professors really helped you have someone to go to when you wanted to know about how would I even get into a program like that, or where should I start looking, or what kind of things are available.
Have you encountered any other wrestlers or people with wrestling background at Vanderbilt?
No, it's a lot different.
Is it unique? Do people ever look at you, ask you funny, like, wait, you wrestled in college?
Yeah, sometimes people are surprised to see the combination together. Like I've seen it a lot, like when I'm helping out like high schools and stuff, when they're like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" And I think they're expecting some sort of kind of entry level job, since I just finished the bachelor's degree a little bit ago. And then I think they're taken aback a bit when they hear that I'm pursuing my PhD at Vandy. But so you certainly do. Some people assume that there is going to be a disconnect. You're either good at wrestling or you're good at academics. And I think sometimes they assume, even when they hear that I do both, that I was like bad at whichever one they don't know me in. So like I think sometimes people put up these barriers for themselves that they don't need to see. Is my point. You can certainly be successful in both.
What's it like being carrying a flag for BV? Because, a lot of people, when they hear doctoral candidates, they're assuming people are coming from an Ivy League background. They're assuming that they went to the Browns, the Harvards, the Yales, or even, the higher level private education schools like Lehigh, Bucknell, for those in wrestling circles. And you have to explain, how many times do you have to explain, Buena Vista, it's in Storm Lake, Iowa. And yes, that is in here. You have to even go further.
Yeah. Well, I do have to every now and then, but sometimes you'd be surprised, because we do have some people who are from like Turkey and like completely out of the country. So it's not as uncommon as you might think in at least the PhD program to run into people who are like, oh, I'm actually from whatever place in India. Like initially, that's where I did my undergrad. So they might have no idea, but they're at least they've had no idea before.
With what Coach Breese has got going now in his third year, I mean, from what you have been able to keep up with the program, do you like what you're seeing? I mean, you were with the previous regime, and trying to keep the alumni connected, something he's tried to do. And what do you think about the job he's done so far?
I think he's done a really good job with keeping people in the loop and connected. With a lot of like the newsletters, keeping you up to date on the results and things like that. I think it's been great to just kind of continue building upon the BV's wrestling program.
Of course, with such a strong wrestling tradition in Iowa and it being a border state to here in Minnesota and such a strong wrestling tradition here in Minnesota, do you think Coach Breese should recruit more Minnesotans or should he recruit more Iowans?
Minnesotans are pretty cool, so I would say you should start looking north of the border. I'm just kidding.
Well, there is a kid from Spring Lake Park on the team this year. I know that's like 2 minutes from my house, but being a Division III wrestler, we talk about the gym we're in right now, and you see the banners hanging from Augsburg's rafters. And being a Minnesota guy, you know what this tradition means to this state. You know, it's not just, it's Division III here in Minnesota. It's Augsburg. I mean, the Allen and Gloria Rice Wrestling Room. I mean, the name is synonymous with Minnesota wrestling. How much respect do you think Division III wrestling in Iowa needs? They've got it with Wartburg, or that school in Waverly, as we now say on the show. But, compare your upbringing with knowing about Division III wrestling in the state of Minnesota to choosing to wrestle Division III, heading down to Storm Lake.
So when I was making that decision, I was trying to look at the college as a whole, too. Not that I have anything bad to say about Augsburg, but one thing that I was really fortunate about was I actually ended up competing for an academic scholarship at BV, and I ended up getting an academic full ride, so it covered all of my tuition, and that made the decision a whole lot easier, because otherwise I think it would have been quite the nail-biter, because I was considering some of these other schools like Augsburg as well. So the financial support and a lot of these other opportunities certainly played a nice role in the decision.
So this is the sales pitch time. This is what this show is, too. It's a little bit of the recruiting for those listening. If you're speaking to a high school senior, regardless of where they're from, and you want to talk about the academic opportunities and the athletic opportunities you were afforded at Buena Vista, what did you get out of this, and what would you tell somebody who's considering coming to school in Storm Lake?
So as far as what I got out of my education or my time at BV, I think I had a lot of... when I was going to school at BV, I actually would always max out my credits. So I would take as many credits as that my scholarship would cover without being charged more. So that usually meant 17 or 16 credits a semester. And I think doing stuff like that and really trying to get the most out of the academic part and really immerse yourself in that without compromising on the wrestling, because I made sure I was doing that all summer, and of course nights and weekends and all that kind of good stuff.
Holidays.
And holidays, yes. There isn't really any off time, but you don't really need it when it's something you love, I guess. But anyway, I think BV gave a lot of opportunities to be able to do all of this, and I think the things between the nice campus where you're able to connect with your professors, to being able to have a pretty close knit wrestling team where you could always have a partner to go down and work out, and to really I guess impact and have influence on who you become, I think is really valuable. And I think you can see that at BV with all of the resources that you have available to be the best you can academically and to be the best you can athletically.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.